The recording will be made available to you once in the YouTube channel that I have, so you can access the class anytime you want. So today we will start from so first few weeks I will take a little bit of theory. Then we will go into project-based learning, as I have already said you. So today we will start with some little bit of statistics. I'm not going to go into machine learning right away or deep learning right away. We'll just revise some statistics, and we will try to solve some problems, and we'll see how these things relate to us. Okay. Now, before that, let me start sharing my screen. Let me know once you can see my screen. Yeah, can you guys see my screen? Anyone can
Yes, we can. Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. So before going into any kind of statistics or mathematics or anything, so we have to understand the notion of the concept of model. Now, let me see how much you understand by the term model. So I'll go by the old students first because they have had already some class. So let's see. So Pulkit, can you explain what is a model? What do you think is a model?
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. So Imran. Imran, you're on mute.
Model actually say it is a set of random data that like which acts as an input, and we analyze that data, and we predict okay the solution. We try to predict okay like how it will behave, okay, and analyze and those things. That's all I can remember now.
Okay. So as per you, the model is random data. So Nitesh, you want to add something?
So, based on my understanding, model is a framework which has been, trained or which has been created out of existing set of data, which we have made to learn based on training and test separation, and then it is ready to be deployed to analyze and predict the live data or the new data as it comes in.
Okay. So for as per you, it is a framework. So as per Imran, it is a random data. It is as per you, it is a framework. Pulkit has no answer. So let me make this thing very clear to you once for all. What is a model? And we will have no confusions thereafter. So model is something in very generic term I will tell, which simulates the reality. Okay. So model is something that simulates the reality. It is applicable in any field, be it computer science, be it biological, or be it any arts, any English, any area there can be usage of the term model. So model is a simulation of the reality. So like if you all have seen the movie Matrix, so the matrix is the model of the world that the people live in, right? So they think that that is the real world, and they live in that real world, and they do their day-to-day work, everything. But that is not real. That is a model of the real world that used to happen. So that is a very much complicated example of a model, which is very big. It can be as small as suppose I give you 2 rupees and you return me 4 chocolates. So this is this happens in a shop. In a shop. So this shop is the model. Okay. So what is this shop doing? If you give 2 rupees, it gives 4 chocolates. So this is one rule that is goes into this model. Another rule can be, if I give 10 rupees, then I can get a Parle-G biscuit. Okay. So this is rule number 2. Similarly, there can be n number of rules, right? There can be n number of rules. And this n number of rules, I can just remove this one and I can write a code. I can write a code which will do the exact same thing which this shop used to do manually. So in this shop, there was a shopkeeper. He used to take 2 rupees from you, go to the shelf, bring the chocolates, give to you. So this was happening like that, right? Now I write a vending machine. I develop a vending machine and I write the software code for the vending machine, which follows all these n number of rules. That if somebody gives 2 rupees, give him 4 chocolates. If somebody gives 10 rupees, give him a Parle-G biscuit. Okay. So now what happens? I can just remove this shop and the shopkeeper, everything, and put the vending machine with this code, and it will also work fine. So what happens now? So the code, so this has become the model for the shop, right? So we don't need the shop anymore. We just have the model of the shop. So this is the actual idea behind the model. Now, if we come to data science, how it happens? See, until now, we have been going through algorithm approach. Algorithm approach is what? Algorithm approach is simple. We know a set of rules and we write down that rule using if else or loops. Okay. If else loops. This is the maximum that goes inside a code, right? Apart from that, function call and all those things are there, but ultimately it is if else condition and some loops. Okay. So algorithm is like a top-down approach. You have a set of rules and you know what to do. You just write the code for it using if else and loops. But model is a different approach to solve the same problem. But in here, we are creating a black box. In here, we are creating a black box which will behave very much like the original entity. Very much, suppose this is the original entity. So we made an algorithm model and we made an algorithm path and we made a model path. So in algorithm path, what will happen is we'll observe the original entity, jot down the rules, and then using those rules, we will write the code and we will have an algorithm for that. That will also be same as this one. In case of model path, what happens? We don't observe the rules. We let the model learn the rules. Okay. So here is a big difference in here. Here, as when I said this n number of rules, how did you come to know about this n number of rules? You observed, right? You went to the shop for many days and you observed that when I give 2 rupees, he gives 4 chocolate. When I give 10 rupees, he gives a Parle-G. So you observed this, you wrote down this in a notebook. So this is how you learned that these are the protocols of a shop. So that's why you were able to convert that into a vending machine and a code. But in data science, the model does not follow this way. We don't observe the rules. We allow the model to observe the rules by itself and make necessary changes by itself. So that is a major difference here. So how does it happen? We send data in, we get a data out, we see the difference in the data between the what data came and what is expected, the error, and we adjust the model. How we adjust, we will talk a lot later. But what is we doing? We are sending data, we are getting output data. We already have a reference data. So suppose here I'm sending data means I'm sending 2 chocolates, 2 rupees. But I instead of 2 chocolates, I got 3 chocolates. What is the error? 3 minus 2. 3 minus 2 is the error because I should get 2 chocolates. I got 3 chocolates. So 1 is the error. So if I adjust this error somehow in this model, then next time when I send 2, it will give me not 3, but 2, right? Which is correct one. So, and it does not happen in just 1 or 2 iterations. It takes many iterations. But ultimately what happens? Nobody knows the rules. Nobody knows the rules inside a model. Like if I say you to reverse engineer a algorithm, you can very well do it, right? You can take the code in your hand, you can read the code, you can find out the if-else loops, if-else and the loops, and you can do a flowchart and you can tell me that this is how the system works. Okay, but in the model, there are no algorithms, there are no code, there is no English writing code, high-level language code that you can see and decipher from there. Inside the model, what is there? Inside the model, there are some nodes with some weights and activations. It is like you can think of like a circuit. You can think it of like a circuit. Sometimes this circuit will fire. Sometimes this circuit will fire. Sometimes this circuit will fire, depending on the weight which is in the nodes. And how these circuits fire has been learned by the data that was given and the error that was calculated. So if I tell you, if I give you this network now, and I tell you that decipher it and tell me the rules of this model, can you do it? You cannot do it because it is a set of weights and an activation functions. What on the earth does it mean to you? You don't know. You cannot understand. That is not understandable by a human. But if I give a code to you, you can do it. Okay. So here is the main difference. So model can be of 2 types. It can be code-based model, or it can be of like a weight-based model. Code-based and weight-based model. In code-based model, the user observes the rules and then codes and tries to match the model, algorithmic model with the original one. In the weight-based models, we flow the data, find the error, adjust the weights, and then try to bring the model as close as to the original one. So what is the beautiful thing here? If you see if else and loops, okay, so algorithm can capture at the max linear relationship. What do you mean by linear relationship? Linear relationship means something is increasing, then the other thing is also increasing. Something is decreasing, and the other thing is also decreasing, right? So the rate of increase and the rate of decrease may be different. Maybe this is increasing like this, and this is increasing like this. Okay, the rate of increase and decrease may be different, but the relationship is linear. You have to understand the concept of linear relationship here. So in algorithm, at the max, we can capture linear relationship between rules, inputs and outputs, right? Two rupees, four chocolates, 10 rupees, Parle-G. So these are like linear rules, one-to-one rule, okay? But when we are giving you a network of weights and you have the leverage to change the weights as per you want, as per the model wants, to become as close as to the original entity, it becomes very flexible and it becomes capable of capturing non-linear relationships as well. Non-linear relationships means which are very complex and not obviously visible to the human eye. Like say a simple relationship is like the bees are responsible for pollinating the flowers, and hence if the bees are dying, then the plant diversity is also dying, and hence oxygen is getting less on earth, and it is also affecting the human beings, right? So bees, dying of bees and dying of humans has a relationship, but the relationship is not linear. There are many factors inside this, right? Pollination is there, plant is there, so many environment is there, but there is a relationship. Now, to capture this relationship in a if, else, and loop is impossible. So this model cannot be captured in algorithm, but this can be captured in a weight-based model, because here the complexity of relationship capture and discovery is very high. Just a minute. So the complexity of relationship capture is very high. Okay, so we can capture very complicated relationships. That is why neural network models are taking such important stage in today's market, right? Space, biology, medical sciences, everywhere, because those are not something that will be you can just code, right? You cannot just code a black hole. The principles of a black hole, you cannot just code it. You have to make a model of the black hole, and that model should be complicated enough, maybe millions of neurons inside that model, which mimics the behavior of a black hole, right? So you cannot just write code. If you go and write code to mimic a model of a black hole, it may be trillions of lines of code, right? With and still you may not get near to the original behavior. But in case of a model, if we have enough data, then we can achieve that. Okay. So this is called a model. So now anybody has any doubt on what is a model? Can ask me. Okay, good. So now when we know what is a model, so we will start. Our job is, you remember one thing. We are learning data science. Our job is to build models. Okay. After building the models, we have to train the models, you have to test the models, you have to deploy the models, you have to productionize the models. All things happen on the model. Okay. So our bread and butter is model. Okay. But it does not mean that other technology like cloud, say Docker based technologies are not useful. They are useful. Otherwise, how you will deploy a model, right? You suppose you developed a model for a black hole, but ultimately you need people to use that model, right? So there are many observatories and labs all around the world. Everybody is trying to use your model of the black hole at the same time. How do you load balance it? how do you make sure that everybody gets it seamlessly? So all that, there is a lot of technology involved inside that. So we will go through that technology also. But always remember that our everything revolves around a model. If a model is not there, then we are not there. Okay. So that is the main basic starting point that you should always keep your focus on. That I am a model developer. Now that model can be very simple or very complicated. It depends. But I am a model developer. So now we will start with very simple model development. Okay. So that is what we call is univariate analysis. See, I will link everything towards model, even though you will think that this is a subject related to statistics. But ultimately, you will see that this will have a link to model development. Okay. So this is what I have experienced and realized from my work in machine learning until now. That whatever I do, indirectly or directly, is targeted towards model development only. Okay. And what are the things I learn in that journey are just the tools to develop a model. Okay. So univariate analysis. So what is univariate analysis? So suppose anybody has an idea what is univariate analysis?
It is with respect to a single variable or the single parameter.
Right. So we will talk about something about features here now. Features or parameters, as you said. What is a feature? Feature, there is a complete branch and job sector in industry related to feature engineering. Okay. So there is a complete branch of industry related to feature engineering. So that means that much huge and important this is. So we have to understand what is a feature very, very nicely. Like we understood model, we have to understand feature. What is a feature? So, like suppose I buy a mobile phone and I go to the website and it says either specs or features. There is a area. It tells how much megapixel of camera it has, what is the 4G or 3G, it is other, what is the kind of touch screen it has. So all these are what? All these are kind of description about the phone, right? So if you did not see the phone, and let's say you and me are talking, and I am telling you about a phone. I'm telling you, oh, I got this beautiful phone. It's black in color with QLED screen. And in the back side, there are 4 cameras, and each camera is 8 megapixel. And then on the left side, there are 2 switches. On the right side, there is 1 switch. And the bottom, there is 1 switch for holding the call. And when you open it, you see the Google Play Store and the YouTube and everything. So you see, when I'm talking about this one to you, all of you have imagined that phone inside your head, right? That black color phone is inside your head. How did it happen? Because I told you the features of the phone. The better I tell you the features, the clearer the picture of the phone will become in your mind. The less I tell about the features, the less clear it will become in your mind. It will become a little vague, right? And if I tell it is grayish black, or it is gray or in between. So I am giving you a range, right? So maybe Tanmay can think of little darkish gray, while Nitesh can think of little grayish dark. So both of them will have a different image in their mind. But when I say it is black in color, so both of them will have same image in mind. So feature is nothing but metadata about an object or entity, right? Information about an object, okay? So that that object can be represented only by that, nothing else, right? So, so suppose I am doing a analysis of which phone is the best in the market, right? So I cannot take the phone and put it inside the machine learning model, right? I cannot take the hardware and put it inside the machine learning model to tell me which is the better phone, right? I have to see the phone, go to its manual page, write down all its features, and create a maybe a vector. Okay, I'll create a vector. Each vector has a importance. This is camera, this is sound, this is screen, this is the battery. So like this. So I create a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, 9 vectored, 9 length vectored feature of a phone. So now I don't need that phone anymore. I have this. I will use this now on to represent the phone. So this is called feature. And to discover features is called feature engineering. I am giving you some example of phone so you are very easily understanding the features because you are very much aware about it. Let me say about an instrument, musical instrument, a harp. I guess nobody among us knows about a harp, right? We just saw pictures of some harp, maybe. Now I'll tell you what are the features of harp. Can you tell me? You cannot. But if I tell you features of a guitar, you might be able to tell me. And if you are into music, then you might be able to tell me much better way. But harp, no, because it is a uncommon musical instrument. So that means what? To discover the features, domain knowledge is very important, right? So if you have knowledge of a domain, then you will have better features. You will discover better features. So a person who is a harp player will give us a detailed list of maybe 10 or 15 features that belongs to harp. But we cannot, okay, because we don't know. So domain is important. Second is, after domain, you also should know that how much is enough and how much is redundant, right? So like battery power is there, and longevity. So these two features are redundant. Battery indirectly tells about longevity. Longevity indirectly tells about battery. So we can remove one of them and keep one. So this is also one more trick that you can use to develop very crisp features. Okay. So it's not that Always big number of features is good. There is a say, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you have 100 length vector and there are many redundant information in that, so what it will do, it will just disturb the model, or it will bias the model, right? So we have to have very crisp features. That is exactly what is required, and that should not be too less that it does not clearly identify the object, right? So if suppose guitar and sitar are there, right? So these two are musical instruments and very almost similar, but there are few features which differentiate a guitar from a sitar. But if I only take say 4 features like chord tensile strength or diameter, length, like these generic properties, features, then I cannot say that it is a guitar or a sitar. But if I take something else which is very exclusive to a guitar or a sitar, then my feature engineering becomes more crisp. Okay. So feature engineering has to be complete and crisp. Complete means not less. Crisp means not more. Okay. So this is our feature engineering. In univariate analysis, we have only one feature. One feature. Yes, there are situations where we get only one feature and we don't have much options. So we have to do analysis of our model using that one feature only. So let us see an example where we can have a univariate feature analysis. Okay, suppose height, weight, and obesity. Or say you can say this as type, height, weight, type. So you have height of people, say 180 centimeter, 90 kgs, and we'll tell obese. Then we say 160 centimeter and 50 is the weight. Then we say is slim. Then say 170 centimeters and 78 kg. Then we say fit. Similarly, we have a lot more data. We have a lot more data here. So who can say how many features we have here? Pulkit?
3.
We have 3 features. Okay. Tanmay, how many features do we have here? Tanmay, you are on mute.
3.
3 features. Yeah. So now we have to analyze something only by using one feature. Only by using one feature. So how to do that? I plot a graph. Okay. And I plot the weights. Okay. So I see that now in what is in, you will tell me what is, if you are putting a graph, that means X and Y, two are there. So you will have two values to plot, right? So how is it univariate then? So it becomes univariate because we take Y as a very generic number system, which starts with 0, 1, 2, here -1, -2, like this. So Y is a generic number system. It does not represent any feature. So we will assume that all our X features are in the 0th line. then you will see that weights around this are called as slim. Weights around this are called as fit, and weights around this are called as obese. So there is a range. So now what happened? We are no more dependent on the y-axis. I can take this line here also. It will be same thing. Or I can take this line here also. It will be the same thing. I am only analyzing or categorizing a particular person as obese, slim, or fit based on his weight. Okay, which is less accurate, because how many we are using less features. So suppose the weight is 78. Okay, now as per Indian standards, 78 is a fit weight. Okay, but if you go to say the um, Caucasian breed, or like Netherlands and places like that, 78 is underweight there, right? Because they are like 7 feet tall people, average height. So say somebody of weight 78 is underweight, so he will be considered as slim. But in India, he will be considered as fit. So that means what? If we considered height, then we would have got a better analysis. But we didn't consider height because this is the univariate analysis. So we are only using weight to analyze. And we are getting an information. It is not like we are not getting any idea. The analysis tells us something, but not enough that we can accurately say. Now, where is the model here? The model is this one. Input the weight, output the category. Right? 60 kgs. 60 kgs. This is the class category. Output slim. Right? So we have developed a univariate model which only takes one parameter, that is the weight, and it tells the category of the person, either slim, obese, or fit. Okay, so this is called univariate analysis. Any doubts? Okay, so similarly,
Oh, sure.
let's run this one. Similarly, let's talk about multivariate analysis. So in this case, again, I can take a two-dimensional. Here I can take weight. Here I can take height. Okay. So how will be my plotting now? So height, say it is 180, and weight is 90. So here is one plot. Similarly, 160, 50, and 170, 78. So my cluster will be now around here like this. Instead of a straight line, it will be a plane, right? This will be obese, this will be fit, this will be slim. Okay, so instead of so it can happen like this also, like a person is height is only say 120 centimeters, and he has a weight of say 90 kg. So this will extend like this, right? Right. So anybody falling in this region, will be considered as obese as per their height. Okay. So what has changed? Earlier, my classification was in a straight line. Only 3 lines were there. Now it is 2-dimensional, a plane. The clusters are in a plane, not a line, because there are 2 variables involved now, right? So suppose the height is 180 and the weight is say 45. So this one, so there will be a cluster here, which will be slim cluster, right? So how many people are there depends on. Suppose there is only one person, that is an outlier, that cannot be considered. But if there are 10, 15 people, then yes, slim, one slim category is there. 180 height is too much, still weight is so small, so the person will look very lean. So it is a slim category. So the difference between the analysis has been changed from a single line to a plane, right? So now we have multiple dots in this plane. We also had multiple dots here, but it was in a straight line. But here we have multiple dots in a plane. So now we are more accurate with our analysis. We are more accurate with our analysis because we are taking into consideration of 2 properties, which is height and weight. So that India and Netherlands example will nicely work out here, because 78 will be somewhere here, and in India people are around 160. So this will be the fit region. This will be the fit region of India, and in Netherlands, say 190, and weight is 90. So this is one more fit region here. So you can say there are 2 fit regions. This is belongs to India. This belongs to Netherlands. Okay. So there are multiple regions here now: fit, unfit, fit, slim, obese. Okay. So it's not only a single straight line anymore. So this is called bivariate analysis, where we are doing 2 variables to use the analysis. And the most important point is our bivariate analysis becomes better if the distance between 2 clusters is more. Suppose this is a set of points, this is a set of points. So we are very happy because we can tell this is this, this is this. But if our points are like this, then our classification is not very clear. There are a lot of overlapping. So what do I call this kind of people? Whether they are obese or they are slim or fit, I don't know. So there are a lot of algorithms like KNN, K-means algorithm, DB-scan algorithm, which relies on this distance of clusters. How much is the distance between a cluster, so that they can find out how common traits within features. So this is a unsupervised learning algorithms. So depending on the distance of clusters, they find out common traits in features. Okay. So because those traits are not exclusively told to us that these are the traits, find it. We find it based on the distance algorithm. So that's why it is unsupervised. Okay. So this is bivariate analysis. Now, can anybody say me how will be multivariate analysis? 3-dimensional, up to 3-dimensional, we can say. Suppose we have 4 variables, then how will we represent it? Can anybody say?
go for three-dimensional.
Yeah, three-dimensional, I said, I understand. Three-dimensional we can do. We will then get volume. Instead of plane, we will get volumes. But suppose we have 5 variables, 5 features. It is very obvious to have 5 features, right? So how do you represent that time as a statistician? Because analysis means what? You are trying to find out a relationship by looking at it. Okay. So by looking at it, you are trying to figure out, okay, this is obvious, this is slim, this is fit. So what is the best possible way when there are more than 3 features to analyze? So that is called Seaborn Seaborn plotting, where you plot 2 by 2. So suppose there are 3 features, feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 1, feature 2, feature 3. So these are not required because these are two same feature, same feature, doesn't make sense. So we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bivariate analysis for 3 features. So now we will say that okay, 1 and 2 behaves like this. We tell us 1 and 2 behaves like this. 1 and 3 behaves like this. So we are now, yeah, we cannot say 1, 2, and 3 together how they behave. We cannot say because maybe we can say because 3-dimensional is possible, but I cannot say 1, 2, 3, and suppose I have one more 4. So suppose I have one more 4. So I cannot say that 1, 2, 3, 4 how together they will behave. I cannot say that because I cannot visualize that, right? So, but I can do a bivariate plot of each feature with another feature. So this kind of gives me a hint that what is happening. How a hint will happen? Example, I'll tell you. Suppose 1, 2, feature 1 and feature 2 is like this. That means whenever feature 1 is increasing, feature 2 is also increasing. And suppose feature 2 and 3 is like this. So that means when feature 2 is increasing, feature 3 is decreasing. Then who can tell me this plot? If this is 2, if 2 is increasing, 1 is increasing. If 2 is increasing, 3 is decreasing. If 2 is increasing, then what will happen to 3? No, if 1 is increasing, then what will happen to 3?
Decreasing, but in
Decrease.
different manner.
Yeah, not exactly the same manner, but decrease, right? Because when 1 is increasing, that means 2 is increasing. If 2 is increasing, that means 3 is decreasing. So it will be like this. So that means what? I couldn't have the plot of 1, 2, 3 at a time, but I could make out from 2 plots the third plot. I could make out that this is a decreasing relationship. Okay. So this type of relationship is called correlation. You have to remember this term correlation. So correlation means how is one feature related to another feature. So there is 3 types of correlation: positive correlation, negative correlation, and zero correlation. Okay. Positive correlation is this one. It increases, then it increases. Negative correlation is this one. It increases, then it decreases. And zero correlation is this one. It increases, then also no change. Increases or decreases, no change. Okay. So there are 3 types of correlations. So normally, how will be the plots? The plots will be like this. If you see the plots like this, then you will tell that, okay, this is a positive correlation plot. There can be some outliers here and there. Okay, but if the maximum density is here, then it will tell it's a positive correlation. And and this is also a zero correlation, where there is no correlation. Means it is increasing, then other is decreasing or increasing. There is no definite shape. There is no definite shape. It's like a circle, right? So this is also zero correlation. Okay. Any questions in this? These are called Pearson's correlations. Okay. Pearson's correlation. Now, what is the practical usage of this? Practical usage of this is when you get a set of data, we call it exploratory data analysis, right? EDA, right? So before building a model, how is all this related to building a model? So before building a model, we think of we have to understand the data properly. We have to understand the features properly. What is the relationship between the features? That also we have to understand properly. The more better we understand our data, the better model we can generate, right? And that's why exploratory data analysis is so important. And univariate, bivariate, multivariate analysis and Pearson correlations. These are some tools of EDA, exploratory data analysis, right? So like you are given a data of say weather station. You have very less idea on what is my pressure and wind speed, how pressure and wind speed are related. You don't know, right? But you are a data scientist, and it is expected that uh, you can develop a model of the weather station. But you are given the data. So first, what is your job? Your first job is to plot the data with each other and see the relationships, and then understand, okay, pressure is decreasing, that means wind velocity is increasing. So there is some relationship. So heat is increasing, then pressure is also decreasing. So there is some relationship. Then you will be able to develop a very nice cyclone model, right? So this for cyclone forecasting, they do. How they do it? They do it based on machine learning models only. So the entire cyclone is a machine learning model, and they feed the data, and then the model says which direction the cyclone will go, how much speed it will be, where will be the landfall, everything it will say. But if you as a data scientist don't know where is the model, what is the relationship between the data, then it's useless, right? So that is the reason that we are learning these things today. Okay. So tomorrow I will give you some one or two problems, and we'll just see that you remember. And we will go under. We'll go to Z-score statistics. I will go very fast on these things and finish very fast, and then we will start project. Okay, because these are theory. This has to be told. You cannot. You cannot intuit by intuition. You cannot learn this. You have to understand first. Okay. Okay. Any doubt, anybody? Okay.
Uh, yes, feature discovery that you said, feature engineering and feature identification. Okay, like along with the data, this information will be given to us, or we need to deduce it from the data itself.
We have to deduce it. So it belongs on how good your domain knowledge is and how good you can interact with people, those who have the domain knowledge. So for example, I'm saying when I was working in Western Digital, so I never worked on NAND technology. Okay, NAND is mainly the pen drives and everything are using NAND technology. So what I had to do a machine learning model for them. They gave me a big database, I didn't understand anything about the column names. From the column names, I did not understand anything. What is that? Okay, what I will do with that data? What model will I generate? So I had to go sit with them, understand that this feature is this feature is this is how this is how they're related. I also plotted some graphs and got some idea. And after that, then slowly I gained the knowledge and the feature. I could generate more features than they gave me. Okay, so that is called feature engineering. When you're generating more feature than available, which is more crisp and more accurate. So that is called feature engineering. So we will do when we will do some projects, like I will give you some NLP projects. So I will explain you why how to you will be given the challenge to find the features. So like you all will say, suppose Nitesh comes with 20 features, you come with 25 features. We will measure, we'll see why you have 25 features, whether you have redundant features or not, whether Nitesh is missing on some features or not. So we'll do all this exercise.
Okay, Biswa, thank you.
Okay, guys. So if no more question, I'll stop it and I'll upload the video and I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you, Vishwa.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.